Hey guys, Tyler here from Silencer Shop, giving you some hand movements from the front of the screen because today we're doing a little remote experiment with a 360 video, and we thought, hey, what a good excuse to cover a quick how to clean a 22 silencer. This will be sort of a high-level overview. I'm not going to go over every, pardon the pun, nitty and gritty detail of it, but it should give you a basic idea just from what I had laying around in my truck to clean a 22 silencer that was also laying around in my truck. So to kick off, today I've got the rugged Oculus 22 for any 22 silencer that's user serviceable, which the majority in the modern market are. Some of them will come with some kind of proprietary tool, which Rugged does. Some of them come with just wrench flats on the front, but basically you're going to need to take your silencer apart. And if at any point during this your silencer differs from the one I'm using, obviously check your user manual or give the manufacturer a call. But for Rugged, they've got this handy little end cap tool that busts your end cap off. Right here, it fits into the grooves of the end cap. And once it's free, you can pretty well do it by hand. Basic idea is this is a baffle stack silencer, so if you've got a monocore like a Silencer Sparrow or something like that, it'll differ a little bit as far as the disassembly and reassembly, but the way to clean it will pretty much remain the same. Again, the rugged Oculus is a little unique in that it's modular for length, so you've kind of got two different tubes with two different baffle stacks inside of them. Today, let's just kind of focus on this main rear baffle, which is the one I shoot the most of and is the dirty one. If your baffles don't freely fall out, no problem there. This is a brass cleaning rod. If you don't have a brass cleaning rod, you should go get one. A wooden dowel works for this as well. I would stick away from the steel cleaning rods just because they have a higher potential of damaging your silencer. 17.4 hardened stainless steel baffles inside of this thing don't matter a whole lot, but obviously you don't want to introduce any kind of metalware and galling if you don't need to. But I got a brass cleaning rod here and then an aluminum one here, which we'll go over why you may need two here in just a little bit. But once your baffle stack comes out, this one's got probably 300 or 400 rounds through it, so not a lot, but enough to get it a little bit dirty. At this point, you're going to want to break your baffles apart, which some of them may pop apart really easily. And with rugged Oculus, many baffle stack silencers will do this, but not all. If you can see inside of there, these are notched so that they only go together in one, well, two orientations this way or 180 degrees that way. So just keep that in mind. You've got little flats on the inside of a rugged Oculus and many of the others that are built like this. So if they don't come apart easily, you can give them a little bit of a jimmy left and right, and they should pop apart easy enough. If you get one that's nice and stubborn and stuck in there, I'm not going to do it because it's going to be terrible on the microphone. Ramon's going to yell at me, but you can take it flat and just kind of tap it on a table and see if that'll knock it loose, and again, jimmy to wiggle it. And if that doesn't work, the manufacturers are not going to like me telling you this, but if you've got a brass rod or an aluminum rod, a combination of the two or two brass and two aluminum, you can stick one inside one baffle and the other inside the other baffle, and use these to very, very gently work your way along the radius of that cone, and applying a little bit of pressure here, rotate it a little bit, apply a little bit of pressure, rotate it a little bit, so you're not cranking on it in one orientation where you have the ability to actually damage, bend, or mar up the baffles. Again, the name of the game there is being gentle, and that one I got lucky there. You'll also notice as you're taking it apart, it's probably worth noting what orientation you took them apart in. Rugged was very kind to engrave a little #1, number sign 1 on their blast baffle, and their forwardmost baffle is very evident in that it's much bigger than the other baffle, or excuse me, much smaller than the other baffles. So again, that covers pretty much any silencer. You want to take it apart, find a way to get all the baffles apart. If they're getting stubborn with you, find a way to apply not necessarily force, not a significant amount of force, but radial force. You know, take those two brass rods and a little bit, rotate a little bit, rotate a little bit, until they snap apart on you. The way of avoiding having to do that is take your silencer apart more often and clean it more often. But basically, as I said, disassemble everything, take note of kind of which orientation they went in. If you want to get super high speed about it, if your blast baffle is the same as all the others, you can kind of take them apart in order and then rotate your blast baffle in one. And then every time you do that, rotate your blast baffle, oh, pardon me, rotate your blast baffle in one, rotate your blast baffle in one, and as you go, you're kind of rotating your blast baffle through. That's maybe a little more high speed than you need to be, but it's worth mentioning in a comprehensive cleaning video. There we are, back in order there. And then for actually cleaning them, I should have noted at the top, 22 more often than not is a lead projectile. I would recommend wearing gloves for this. I know you may feel like a little bit of a sissy if you wear gloves during this part, but lead gets in your bloodstream and it doesn't leave. For the intents and purposes of this video, the only gloves I have are black, and it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing with black gloves on, so I'm not going to wear them, but I do recommend wearing gloves if you're cleaning a 22 silencer. As far as actually cleaning the baffles go, I use just regular old simple green. That's in a 1 to 2 diluted bottle, but you could certainly do that. I mean, you can go to the home store, grocery stores, in many places nowadays carry simple green, but whatever you're using to clean this, I like simple green because I can get it all over my hands and I don't worry about it hurting my skin or anything like that, but also keep in mind that there is an argument, I guess it's not an argument, chemically, simple green can corrode aluminum. So if you're cleaning aluminum baffles and you're using simple green, I do it all the time. Just make sure you wash your baffles off nice and neat before you reassemble the thing back together. So for actually cleaning it, I typically get some kind of a bin or container like that, stick a paper towel or a rag inside there, toss all my baffles in there, and go ahead and give them a little bit of a soak, and let them be soaking while I'm working on the others. Doesn't have to be pretty, just make sure they're all coated in whatever you're using to clean this. Any old gun solvent, gun detergent, anything you use to clean your guns will work for this process. Again, I just use simple green. An AP brush, toothbrush, don't use your wife's. Feel free to use your kids though. And just take this and, let me make sure I'm in the middle of the frame there, rub it around there. And basically what you're looking to do here, you're probably not ever going to get this baffle back to the shiny gold color it was from the factory, or silver, you know, whatever your baffle was from factory. But what you're looking to do is give it a good brush off, get all the carbon off of there, and then take a closer inspection at it and make sure you don't have any significant buildup of lead fouling inside there, which you may actually be able to see on the interior of the baffle if I can get light in there. It's going to be very evident. It looks like pencil lead. It's made of lead. And the basic idea is you want to clean out the clumps. If it's still a little discolored, I mean, granted it's not armory clean, but it's at least field expedient clean, and that's what I'm going for here. You're not going to pass an inspection, but again, as long as you don't have any chunks inside of there. The other thing to look out for, especially in a silencer like this that has a click together system, is you're going to have a little ridge on the inside of one of your baffles and on the outside of another, and these two pieces engage with one another, and you're going to want to make sure that those engagement surfaces are pristine, absolutely crystal clean. And again, that's going to help you in disassembling. As you noticed when I took this thing apart, it was a little bit sticky and hard to get apart. That's because some carbon and lead had worked itself into these little ridges and things like that, which if you have laying around an old Leatherman mutt with this carbon scraper on there, that's great. It's made of brass. You could also use a brass cleaning rod for this. You could also go to the home store, which is typically what I do, and just get some sheets of brass. They sell it in different thicknesses. You can get it online too if you're lazy. And basically cut it up with some wire snips, tin snips, excuse me, and make your own little carbon scrapers of different sizes and shapes and things like that. And basically what you want to do is just take this tool and run it along that engagement surface, and just again making sure you're cleaning out all that carbon and all that lead off of those pieces that end up touching one another and have a compression fit against them. Also on this one, you'll notice there's a little step right here where that keyed surface is. Just a quick pass over once or twice, not a whole lot of force. You're not trying to break anything here. You're just trying to clean off that black grime and gunk. Quick wipe off with the rag. And it's basically, pardon the pun again, rinse, lather, and repeat. Use a brush to knock off all the main noticeable carbon and lead buildup. Wipe that off, and then take a second visual pass at it and make sure you don't have any significant chunks built up on here. This one looks pretty good. And then again, just a quick run over on that actual engagement surface, which you may be able to see right there. There is a decent amount of gunk built up in there. And at this point, you're just playing pretend dentist, cleaning off all these little surfaces. You'll also probably notice as you're doing this, your baffles that are further away from the muzzle of the firearm are going to be cleaner. This being my end baffle, this little tiny one here. And it is, as you can see, with just a quick wipe off, almost completely gold again. Don't forget to clean off the insides of them too. The forward one isn't as big of a deal to clean off the inside of this because it's not actually engaging with the next baffle, obviously. But I did notice some chunks built up in here, and if you leave them there, they're just going to grow. There'll just be a more surface area for more lead to build up, you know, as you go back out and shoot more and more and more. If you knock them off early, they tend to stay pretty clean long term. Should have one more in there somewhere. There she went. And last one here. Pardon the repetitive nature of this. Inside, outside, visual inspection. There's a decent chunk of carbon, which I'm not as worried about carbon as I am about lead, but again, carbon adding surface area and sort of a texture to that will just lead to a lead buildup later. It's something for the lead to stick to, grab hold of, so to speak. Nice and clean. And the interior engagement, also clean. It's at this point, if you've got an air compressor standing by, blow them off, clean them off, make sure there's no grime or gunk on there. Again, I won't do that because Ramon's going to yell at me for the audio levels, but you're going to reassemble it. And again, as I mentioned, keeping in mind if you have a significant blast baffle, like one that's actually marked and is intended to be the blast baffle, that one will go on last. We're going to build our stack backwards as we always do, starting with our front baffle, taking our next baffles. As you're reassembling, if you're using a traditional K-baffle style, not a monocore, your manufacturer will have an opinion on these notches and the orientation that they should go. Most manufacturers will say the notches lined up is the best way to do it. Some of them say a notch this way and a notch that way, 180 degrees, alternating back and forth all the way up. But again, you're just going to put those back together. This one has a sort of a little clicking sound as they go in, notch to notch, and those keyed surfaces right here and here. Make sure they line up nice and neat. A little bit of a wiggle, just make sure they're set, and then, I don't know if you can catch that click, but it was there. And then our blast baffle goes on last. Ooh, maybe I still have a little bit of carbon in there. Oh, that's good. Okay, now we're on to the tube. The tube is pretty straightforward. That's a black metal tube, but the same idea. Got little squirts on the inside on the threads. Obviously you want to remove any kind of buildup inside the threads. Interior threads if you have them, which you should for your end cap. And then the actual interior surface of the tube itself. AP brush, stick her in there. Give her a once around, twice around, 3 for a good luck. And then pay a little more attention to your actual threaded portion here. Ditto with the threads on the back. And if you're picky about it, you can obviously clean the exterior of the silencer as well. For most cerakoted cans, I recommend a squirt of Windex and a microfiber cloth. Windex evaporates much quicker than Simple Green does, and it leaves less streaks if you want to be super picky about how your silencer looks. Again, wiping off, drying off with a rag. Same deal on the inside. Give it a good shove with a cleaning rod. Twist and shout. I would, just me being as OCD as I am, take the air compressor and blow out your threads on both sides as well. And that brings us to the end cap. End cap typically doesn't get much dirt, fouling, lead buildup, anything like that, but it is worth cleaning the threads off since you're already in here. We've still got some Simple Green on this rag, so I'm not going to squirt it, but you certainly can. Cleaned off and good to go. Now with your baffle stack assembled on your table upside down, front end facing the deck, take your tube, slide her over, retain that baffle stack inside of there, and then your end cap, not your tool, your end cap, tightens back on, and you're good to go. All right, guys, that's pretty much all there is to cleaning a 22 silencer. I will mention, as I kind of went through, just to recap, I'll mention a brass cleaning rod is a handy thing to have. A wooden dowel works just as well. Wood, when you kind of get down to about 1/4 of an inch, tends to break on me, but you certainly could use 2 wooden dowel rods. Brass rod, aluminum rods, stay away from the steel ones if you're using them to do any kind of force or anything like that. A wooden dowel, a little less than 1/2 of an inch, so if you chuck it up in a drill and take some sandpaper to a 1/2 inch dowel and run the sandpaper up and down it, you can typically get them to fit inside of a 1/2 inch by 28 thread in the back, and you can use that as kind of a baffle pusher tool. If your baffles are stuck in your tube, and slam it against the table and get your baffles to pop out the end. I would say something to clean off the stubborn bits of lead. If they don't come off easily with an AP brush and a rag, which most of ours did today, you don't have to have a fancy Leatherman with a carbon scraper. Again, this is just what's sitting in my truck. A piece of brass from the hardware store and some tin snips, and cut your own. A little piece of brass rod or anything like that will work. Toothpicks work well most of the time. Again, wood has a tendency of chipping and flaking, especially if it gets soaked in simple green and then it starts to bend on you. I would try and stay away from the dental picks. They make dental picks in brass too. I have more trouble with those, keeping them up and having to buy new ones because the tips break off and things like that. And then the steel ones obviously are going to mar up your metal and will definitely do a toll on the Cerakote paint job on the outside. I use Simple Green as a detergent. Whatever you're using to clean your guns will work absolutely fine for your baffles as well. Just keeping in mind, if you're running aluminum baffles, there's maybe a couple of extra considerations to keep in mind just with chemicals and how they react to aluminum. If you've got something super stubborn, you can leave them sitting in your detergent for a while. Again, get a mason jar, an old peanut butter jar, whatever it is, glass jar of some kind, and sit them in there, let them soak for a while, and that may help you break them apart. If you're using anything super caustic, or you're using like break free or any kind of serious chemical cleaner on the inside of this, when you're done, before you take it out and shoot it, wash this thing with soap and water, blow it off with an air compressor, blow it off with an air compressor to dry it off, just to make sure none of that's left in here, so when you shoot that first round, you don't have a fun little fireball at the end of your gun. And that's about all I have to say about cleaning a 22 silencer. For more information on a rugged Oculus 22, you can check us out at Silencer Shop. We've got a couple of pretty cool blog posts up on our website about when to clean, how to clean, why should you clean a silencer. For 22, obviously, you're shooting, as I mentioned at the top, a lead projectile, and that lead builds up inside there as it goes through the rifling of your barrel. Little pieces of it peel off and shoot off into the suppressor, which normally would have gone in the atmosphere. Now they're going into your suppressor. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook or Instagram. All right, thanks guys.